Hi, James.
So, welcome back, everybody. We're going
Yes.
to look at another academic reading. So, this one is about matching the sentence endings. Okay.
Mhm.
So, in this one, you've got a fairly large text. As with all of these, I think that the best thing that you can do is have a look at the answers first, and then have a look at the questions basically, and see what would fit what basically. So I think that's the best advice. Do you have any other tips for the students, perhaps?
No, but as usual, guys, do not hope for luck. You need to study to prepare for this exam. It is not because usually, even if your English is good enough, you need to practice to be able to get used to those tasks, because or you will not have enough time.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Okay. So I think that's a rather good idea. So I think that's a very good idea. And obviously, have a look through it, read it in full, but then focus on the bits that the questions are related to. That's another really good idea. So let's get started. So I'll read it out loud. Science in 16th century London. The Jewel House, a new book by historical researcher and author Deborah Harkness. Deborah Harkness devotes her elegant and erudite new book, The Jewel House, to the scientific community in 16th century London. She rightly argues that it is thanks to the imaginative collective efforts of the urban scientists that London became the melting pot in which a new mathematical and experimental culture crystallized. Harkness is known for her ingenuity as a researcher and her historical empathy. In The Jewel House, Harkness turns her skills on the City of London as a whole with surprising and fascinating results. She began her research by asking herself a new question. Not what caused the scientific revolution, but what the names science and scientist meant in 16th century London. Then she collected a vast range of sources, from printed books to scientific instruments and notebooks, and recorded in a relational database information on the men and women who produced them. Every chapter of The Jewel House charts the activities of a particular community. Harkness leads us through the streets of London, showing us, neighbourhood by neighbourhood, where the major forms of natural knowledge found homes. For example, apothecaries settled in Lime Street in what is now the city, where they created a dense network of shops and gardens. Clockmakers, both native craftsmen and many from overseas, clustered in several parishes near St. Paul's Cathedral. The once wealthy merchant Clement Draper even managed to transform the King's Bench prison in Southwark, where he served time as a debtor, into a centre of research and discussion. By the end of the book, Harkness has mapped London's scientific communities with astonishing precision. Moreover, when Harkness reconstructs these groups, she provides not traditional static accounts of their theories, but dynamic analyses of their practices as these developed over time. In many cases, she makes clear the alchemists of Elizabethan London already understood that knowledge of nature had to rest not on authority, but on familiarity through practice. In one crucial respect, Harkness argues many of the 16th century London scientists differed from the later ones of the 17th century. They saw themselves less as individuals out to gain fame than as members of larger textual communities bent on exchanging and compiling information. The passages in which Harkness analyzes the 16th century practices of note-taking and communication are among the most novel and informative in this fine book. She shows that they adopted the textual information processing methods of humanist scholarship to radically new ends. In this book, Harkness has charted the local and cosmopolitan worlds of science in Elizabethan London with a learning, precision, and intelligence that compel admiration. Moreover, she has crafted a complex and effective new analytical mechanism which may transform the practices of historians of early modern science.
Great text. And I would like to add that I absolutely love to attend the idea that museums in the UK are free for everyone, even for foreigners.
So,
only in London.
I think that there's one or two, like the City Museum is usually free. There are other free ones outside London, but the main London is the place where most of the museums are, the vast majority of the museums are free. So, for example, you can spend your morning at the British History Museum, then you can go to at the British Museum, then you can go to the Natural History Museum, then the Science Museum, you know, as in there's all sorts of, the museums are all free in London. I think outside London, it's more common to see free city museums, you know, local history museums and things like that. That's what's more common. But it's a wonderful fact with London, absolutely.
Yeah, because I remember when I came to London in 2009, I paid for museums, and later on, they became totally free for everyone, including foreigners. And it says a lot about the UK education system, because obviously it's for educating not only citizens of the UK, plus the entire world.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
My number one favorite is Natural History Museum. I can spend there days.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same for me. The Natural History Museum was always the one that I loved the most. It's really, really good, especially with the gigantic, I think it's a brachiosaur or a diplodocus. I remember there's a gigantic dinosaur skeleton in there as well. And there's also, I think, a blue whale, which is really, really impressive. So, yeah, it's absolutely my favorite as well. But it's great for the adults as well. So not just for the kids, that one. So it's wonderful for all ages.
Yeah. James, I have words I do not understand.
Yeah, sure.
Ingenuity.
Ingenuity. So ingenuity is, you know, it's related to ingenious. You know, genius. So it's being really, really intelligent and very, very. In other words, that she's very intelligent. She's a very intelligent researcher that has wonderful methods. That's what I'm saying.
And here they say historical empathy. So I suppose that she really loved history.
Yeah, exactly. So, and empathy is related, obviously, to being able to read other people's emotions. So that's really important as well.
And it's amazing that it happened in the 16th century, because it's so rare, still even now, ladies in science. And at that time, I suppose she was something. She was maybe very unusual.
Well, I think she is from just the author. She's from the modern age, of course. So, yeah, I think, you know, so you do get some women who were interested in science in the early modern period, 16th, 17th century, but it was much, much harder for them to get started on that sort of role or that sort of career. It was very, very difficult. The options were really limited for the time.
There is a word, apothecaries.
Yeah, apothecaries are like a sort of old version of a pharmacy, basically. So they used to work with herbs and create medicines, that sort of thing. Medicines, poisons, that sort of everything. So that's an apothecary.
Clustered. Situated.
Clustered, that means situated, but like high density in a small area, usually, in a small area, usually.
Parishes.
Parishes, so a parish is like a district, but it's more related to the church, basically. So it's the area that's served by a particular local church, basically. Yeah, it's like if you imagine, okay, there's one church in the area, and the area is the church's parish, you know.
Maybe some of our students do not know the word merchant, maybe.
Yeah, it's possible. So a merchant is somebody who buys and sells goods. Yeah. So a spice merchant, you could be a spice merchant, or a textile merchant. You could be, sort of merchant for anything, basically.
You buy somewhere and sell for more price,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Okay, and another word is a debtor. I suppose it's connected something with debt.
Debtor, yes, that one. So a debtor is somebody who is indebted, basically. So served time is usually used for prison. So if you serve time, then that means you might hear nowadays doing time. So and this is a classic example where you've got to be really careful between do and make in English, because if you say make time, you make time for a friend, that means find a free evening or afternoon or morning to spend time with them. That's make time. But do time is serve time. It's be in prison, so for a period of time. So, and a debtor was somebody who could not pay their debts back. So they would be in prison during those days in a special prison called the debtor's prison.
Cool. Okay, so he spent time. He was imprisoned, right?
Yes, that's correct.
For his debts. Okay, very interesting. Astonishing precision. Precision means details in this case, right?
Yeah. So astonishing precision. Yeah, accuracy. Exactly. So precision is like accuracy.
Textual communities.
Yeah, I saw that one. I wasn't. So I suppose that the communities that work more with texts, like for example books and written theories and things like that. So and it says afterwards exchanging and compiling information. So they write down their findings and then they would exchange information. So they're a bit different from the next century, because in the next century they would publish their findings and become very famous, like for example Isaac Newton. But in the 16th century they were different. That they would exchange information and write down information.
So I suppose they were Google of that time.
Yes, exactly. Within their community.
Harkness has charted. Made a list?
Yeah, exactly. But, if you chart, for example, it can also be like a court. It's just put something into a chart. But it can be like a course, a sort of a journey, so as in where to go. That's chart a course, for example. But so she's mapped it out, in other words, and she's written it down.
And compel admiration.
Compel admiration, that sort of force you or make you admire her and her work. So if you are compelled to do something, then you feel you have to do something.
Okay, great. Other words are clear. And guys, we make these videos to help everyone to prepare for IELTS. So that's why please share this information, these videos with your friends who prepare. And if you have anything to comment on about our videos, maybe you have some requests for our next videos, please write down about it in the comments below. And let's help the guys with the answers.
Exactly. So let's have a look at number 1. Harkness's research method was different to that of other writers because... So as in, well, how did she start it off? Because she began her, not what caused scientific revolution, but what the name science and scientist meant. So she started by seeking to understand how basic terms were used in the past. It's B. So the next one, Harkness's reconstruction of the 16th century London scientific groups was new because, so exactly. So she said, because, so it says, so if you look here, moreover, when Harkness reconstructs these groups, she provides not traditional static accounts of their theories, but dynamic analyses of their practices as they developed over time. In other words, it's D. She examined how their methods evolved and changed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so number 2 is D. And then number 3, Harkness shows that the 16th century London scientists were innovative because, and then we've got, so they were innovative, because the passages in which Harkness analyzes the 16th century practices of note-taking and communication are among the most novel and informative in this fine book. She shows that they adopted the textual information processing methods of humanist scholarship to radically new ends. Exactly. So it will be F. They used old ways of analyzing because they were from humanists, so they're old ways of analyzing written information for new purposes.
And guys, I would like to, in my opinion, you find answers, James, you find answers so quickly because you yourself read a lot, especially because you read about different topics, not only humanities we say, not humanitarian, plus scientific, and that's why it's so easy for you. And guys, again, I want to underline that these things, they come only with practice. So please practice. As we say in English, practice makes perfect. And looking forward for your comments. We are very curious. And see you in the next videos.
Absolutely. See you next time. Bye-bye.